What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children and babies? This is episode number 68 of Stir Crazy, a nice little unfiltered, unscripted segment discussion show, panel discussion program where we talk news, politics, culture, all things in between. This is an opinion show, in case you have not figured that out by now. I'm your host, Kim Brown. Today's episode is called The Secret Police Are Coming. And if you haven't already seen the footage that is going viral across social media of uniformed in camouflage, though, however, officers, we don't know what agency they are with. We do not know whether or not they are federal, whether or not they are local. We don't know who these people are, but apparently they are all over the streets of Portland, Oregon, taking protesters into custody. Without charges, without being arrested, and no disclosure as to where the people are being taken now. I have theories. I'm certain you have theories as well. We will get into them in just a moment. Also, coming up on today's program, we're talking about how clearly the protest movement is still very much going strong out here in these streets. And you know what else is going strong out here in these streets? The police. They are still very much out here beating people, violating people's civil and constitutional rights. And a lot of this is being documented. Chicago, New York, LA, different reports coming in from around the country. Also, as it relates to the ongoing case of the murder of Breonna Taylor by 3 Louisville, Kentucky police officers, there was a sit-in staged at the home of the district attorney who is overseeing this case. This person has yet to bring any charges. And when I read a little article about who the district attorney is, I was a little surprised. You might be a little surprised as well. We're going to get into that without a doubt. Listen, we want to hear from you in the comments and in the chat. I think we have the best live chat audience in all of YouTubeville, because y'all keep it all the way live. We have our regulars. We appreciate seeing y'all, your screen names, your handles each and every day. So thank you so much for that. So keep them rolling with your comments, criticisms, critiques, etc., etc. Shout out to everyone who is watching us on Periscope via Twitter. Time to bring in our fantastic panel. This panel was a little late. What else does this panel might enjoy watermelon, and I don't take that as a stereotype because I love the shit out of watermelon. So listen, what I'm trying to say is this is a melanated group we've got today, and I'm very excited for this. Perfect for a Friday. I'd like to definitely bring in one of our regulars here on Stir Crazy. She is the managing director for K-12 education at the Center for American Progress, Dr. Khalilah Harris. We're also joined with Baltimore rapper, recording artist, and activist Eze Jackson, and the host of Why You Should Give a Fuck. Brand new show right here on The Real News. Tunde Ogunfolaju. What is up, panel? Nice to see y'all beautiful glowing faces on this here Friday in July. Thank y'all for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Kim.
What's up?
Let me tell y'all what's up. These police is absolutely not what's up. Have y'all seen this video that has been floating around Twitter all day? People are incensed by it. But when I see this video, I don't think we're seeing what we think that we're seeing, but let's take a look at it and chat, and everyone that's in the comments, I want to hear from you as to what y'all think this is. Let's take a look at this clip.
What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing? Use your words. What are you doing?
I haven't done anything wrong.
Use your words.
What's going on, so much?
What is going on?
We need to know.
Who are you?
Why are you taking
NLG will get you out. What's your name? Tell us your name.
What's your name?
Okay, you're fine. We'll get you out.
Bro, what? Alright,
We got you, friend.
we got you.
Oh fuck!
NLG.
You just violated their rights.
Oh. He's kidnapping people.
You just violated their rights.
Thanks for keeping them fucking. Oh.
Well, Oklahoma Public Broadcasting has verified that at least local authorities don't have a clue as to what agency that was that took that person into custody. Not clear whether or not there were charges, and apparently there have been some accounts of people saying that, yes, this has indeed happened to them. But I'm going to tell y'all what I think I saw, and then I'm going to go around the horn here and see what y'all think. I mean, that looked like, to me, like the handlers was going to grab Donnie Brasco and bring him back in for a debriefing so he could tell them, what's been going on amongst the so-called Antifa lot. I mean, that looked like an opportunity to go pick up your informant from out of a crowded scene that otherwise you may not have access to them. But again, that's just my unverified, unfactual, unproven theory. Eze Jackson, what do you think you saw right there? Do you think that was a legit thing, the police just picking that person randomly and taking them in, or what do you think we were looking at in that video?
No, I'm pretty sure we weren't looking at the police. I would like a little more context or story about who the person was that was arrested and what happened afterwards, because I mean, it's 2020, right? We've been through a lot. We've seen a lot in this country. So that could have been anybody, and it seemed like they knew they were coming for that person in particular. I don't know if this person is a Manchurian candidate or what, but it looks super suspicious. And it's not the police. That's the military.
Dr. Khalilah Harris, your thoughts about what we just witnessed there?
Well, first of all, I think you watched too much Scandal. But what you said until you said it was not my thought, but it sounds very plausible because like Eze just said, they knew exactly who they were going to take off the street. And the fact that the person was completely covered, how the heck did you know to take that person and not the person who was filming and trying to get the name of the agency? I definitely know that was not the police. It could have been anybody, the National Guard, Cuban revolutionaries, we don't know. But that definitely was not the police. And so the fact that they knew who they were targeting tells me that a debrief was very possible on what's happening or what was supposed to be the move for the night or the next day. Maybe her son was sick. I don't know. They need to get her off the street.
Indeed. Very astute observation there, Khalilah, because the person also did not seem surprised that they were being taken off the street at that moment. Tunde, now, if some random cats just roll up on you, are you going to go willingly and quietly? Or are you going to at least be like, hey, my name is Tunde. I live on Ricestown Road. I need y'all to call my mama. I mean, I would have been making all kinds of proclamations in voicing my resistance to this action, but that person seemed to be very cooperative and compliant.
Hey, look, I'm giving up everything. My social security number, the dog, the passwords for all of my logins, everything. I'm giving them it all. But so I think that that's certainly a possible case is that, obviously maybe they're picking up one of their own. But I think maybe like an addition to that, though, is that this is exactly what they want. Is just the image of an unmarked vehicle, some sort of enforcement that you don't know exactly who they are, where they're coming from, and they just snatch people off the streets. They want that to be the scenario because it's intimidation, right? It's like, okay, well, unless you want to get snatched up off the streets and taken to God knows where, then, maybe you shouldn't be outside. Maybe you shouldn't be protesting. So I think that it's possible that they're getting it both ways, right? That not only might it be, they're picking up one of their own, but they also make it look like, hey, like this can happen to anybody. So there's no point in trying to, come out and protest or do whatever you're trying to do. Stay home and you won't have this happen to you.
Also, exactly. I think that's a very good point there also, Tunde, because this video has been viewed millions of times on Twitter. So this could be a warning, a threat to any protesters, anybody that's thinking of taking to the streets in Portland, Oregon. Think twice, or them people in camo and unmarked SUVs may come and get you. But there has been several incidents in the past several days relating to Portland protests. And Dwayne, I want to go to that next video that happened, and I'm going to warn the audience, because when I saw this, it did make me gasp. I was like, that I wasn't expecting that. But what we're going to see is a group of protesters at the courthouse, the federal courthouse there in Portland, which has been the epicenter for many of these protests. And it seems as though that officers shoot a projectile towards the crowd. A gentleman catches it and he's like debating on whether or not to throw it back. And then you'll see what happens. But let me just warn you that this could be graphic. Let's just take a look at that.
Hey, get the fuck! Hey, kick that shit! Fuck you! Fuck! Oh, fuck! Get him out, baby! Hey!
I mean, just a stunning display there from federal police. Now, apparently, this is according to the Oregon Public Broadcasting. They released a story that said that the person who was shot there with a supposed non-lethal projectile, 26-year-old Donovan LaBella, shot in the head with that projectile, he had to been rushed to the hospital, is in some serious condition still, and the statement coming from the police, at least coming from the mayor, rather, of Portland, read, he called on federal law enforcement to abide by the same standards to using less lethal weapons against protesters. And again, excuse me, it's not clear how severely injured this person was. We're still waiting to get some more details about that. But according to the police, or according to the federal law enforcement there, they said that was a non-lethal projectile. Eze Jackson, I mean, my God, non-lethal or not, if you get shot in the head with a rubber bullet or a pepper ball or anything like that, I mean, the sheer velocity and speed at which this object is coming towards your face, for all intents and purposes, is absolutely enough to severely fuck you up. I mean, what are the police doing here, aiming for people's heads, non-lethal weapons or not?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I feel like he should have had the helmet that the guy in the last video had on. I think that we also, and I said this before when I've been on your show, I think that as protesters, we also have to start preparing for this. It's unfortunate, but we have to start preparing for these kind of responses and attacks. You know what I mean? If it's a serious protest, especially in a place like Oregon, Kentucky, like these red states, like, be prepared, because they're not playing. I mean, they're showing us that they're not playing. So I think, like, I feel like my knee-jerk reaction is like, wow, as protesters, we got to start wearing protective headgear and bulletproof vests now to show up and peacefully protest, because they're coming at us like we're at war.
Tunde, I mean, that's a lot like what we are seeing. I mean, we're seeing the response to protests now going on, almost 2 months. And the police are responding like an occupying force, like they are, being deployed against an enemy movement. My God, I mean, we are American citizens, and yet the police are treating us like we have invaded the country somehow.
Yeah, no, they don't care. It doesn't matter to them, because, and to be perfectly honest, we talk all the time about, what are the issues with the police and what can we do to sort of correct the situation? Well, we're seeing the results of it right now. When you're trained like you're a military, right? When you're given those tactics, how is it going to be a surprise that they're using those tactics, right? And to a lot of these people on the force, it's not just about I just want to protect and serve and do all this. It's no, I get to have a firearm. I get to use the firearm, especially if you're using a non lethal firearm. Then it's just a video game to you. You're just going to spray a couple people, and know that, okay, I didn't kill them, but you still get to do. It's still Call of Duty for you, and so I think there's a lot's being sort of revealed, right? That when people are seeing things like this on their TV sets, or they're flipping through social media and they see things like this, I think I would assume it's shocking for a lot of America right now to see, oh, this is what they're like. This is what they're doing. Something that obviously the Black community has been voicing for forever. It feels like. So yeah, I think Easy's got it right that we have to start protecting yourself, start wearing things, but then on there's this weird thing about like escalation, right? That as soon as you start coming out looking like you're ready for war, then that just makes them even more ready to go to war with you, and you're essentially feeding into the kind of the scenario that they want, because I don't know if anybody watches too much of House of Cards, the show on Netflix, but I remember one line from it that sort of always stuck with me was whenever there's sort of whenever the winds aren't kind of blowing, this isn't a direct quote, but whenever the winds aren't blowing your way or things looks crazy and you need something to do, or create chaos, right? Chaos essentially acts as a cure for everything, that you just cause disruption. And so I think that's one tactic they'll always use, right? We all just, not to be conspiracy theory here, but, we all just had issues with hearing, all these firecrackers that were going off, or fireworks that were going off, and a theory that was thrown out there was that it has something to do with the law enforcement, that perhaps they were involved somehow. And I the more and more I sort of look into it, the more and more I'm starting to believe things like that, because when the chips are down for you and you've got no other cards to play, just start creating chaos, and I think that's exactly what they're trying to do with situations like this.
Khalilah, in the comments. I'm sorry. No. Go ahead, Eze. Go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, Tunde brings up a good point, and with both videos, you know what I mean? I think there's a common thread here, and that is like, I personally am feeling like, don't think so small of the intentions of the United States government, the military, and the police. They're going to bring all kinds of tactics that they've been practicing for years. They've been preparing for this stuff for a minute. So, we can't be surprised by a lot of this stuff. And I think a lot of it is like, we got to start being prepared and really thinking like, some of the craziest stuff that may seem far-fetched to a lot of people, maybe the Blue Lives Matter people think that, these guys just come in with their lunch boxes every day and want to protect and serve. But no, it's very strategic. There are tactical things happening. There are weapons that have been practiced with and used, and they're ready to use them right now.
Khalilah, in the comments, Christian for Christ says, shoot a cop in the head with a non-lethal ammunition and see what happens. I think part of the reason why we're seeing police behave in this way is because there's not accountability for this. There's very little chance that whatever cop that was that pulled the trigger, that aimed that so-called non-lethal projectile and shot that young man in the head. The young man's in the hospital, so we can't say really how non-lethal it is. We hope that he survives. But the reason why some of these tactics are being deployed, because either they're being directed to act this way, or they know that there is no consequences coming their direction for behaving like the Gestapo.
I mean, we've seen over the past couple of weeks a number of young people be blinded by these projectiles.
That's right.
Literally lose their sight permanently by being shot in the eye with these projectiles. And when they pick them up, it's like a small canister that some law enforcement officers are shooting at point blank when they're supposed to be used 6 to 8 feet away. Right. And so you have someone using a fueled weapon to shoot you with anything up close at point blank range is going to take your eye out and has potential to pierce your skull. So the idea that it's non-lethal, you take people as you find them. You can't tell me it's non-lethal if you can shoot it at a child and they develop a brain injury and die within the next couple of days. These people who have lost their eyesight, that's a permanent injury placed upon them by law enforcement. And so while I'm not a conspiracy theorist, COINTELPRO has been proven over time to try to cause chaos in Black liberation movement. It is not an unproven or unknown source of disruption from the United States government to insert people and insert chaos into situations that seem to be working for their purpose. And so the idea that if you, let's take Tamir Rice, right? He had a BB gun. He had a toy gun. And he didn't shoot anybody with it. But within seconds, his life was taken at 12 years old. So, Christian for Christ is completely right. We don't have the same rights as our law enforcement, and that is problematic. So when we see around the country district attorneys and other forms of legislatures trying to insist that their police officers get liability insurance, I guarantee you're going to see a difference in policing when it's like, oh, it's my money that has to be paid in the event that I was found to have done something wrong. Oh, I can be personally sued for taking someone's life or violating probable cause rules for even engaging this person. And you're right. It is the idea that there's no accountability. And not only that there's no accountability, that you can go as far as your imagination can take you and there be no accountability. So it's not even like, oops, I made a mistake. I probably held that chokehold too long. It's like, I held the chokehold and then I could put my knee on your neck and then I slammed your face in the ground. So whatever I can think of, I am going to get away with it. And that's a problem for all of our communities, regardless of race, regardless of nationality. If the police are allowed to act without impunity or with impunity, we are all in trouble. And I do watch a lot of television. What this looks like to me, when Handmaid's Tale first came out, I said to people, do you know how close we are right now in the current political situation to some form of chaos being kicked off to remove our rights? And people are like, oh, yeah, it's kind of sketchy, it's kind of scary. And I'm like, no, tomorrow there could be an incident. Think about when the bombings happened in Boston and they declared a lockdown in Boston. I mean, just like that, no one's allowed to leave their home. It was necessary. But people underestimate how our laws can quickly be used against us. And when you have a narcissist and someone who's maniacal and spiraling out of control because a virus didn't go away and the economy is reverting back to when they took office, chaos seems to be like a good response.
Yeah,
I agree with
that's
Khalilah
exactly how Trump governs.
Yeah, and I agree with Khalilah in that we've seen these examples. There's Boston, right here in Baltimore, when Freddie Gray happened, we had a curfew, a lockdown. I remember the last night of it, actually having a show that had to be pushed up to like doors open at 5 p.m. You know what I mean? So that everybody was off the streets in Baltimore by 8 p.m. or something like that. Floyd Mayweather fought that night. And I remember thinking, this is a test. This is only a test, and they're going to keep testing. But that last video you just showed, that was a test. Because we've also seen several videos of protesters, and shout out to those brave souls who threw the smoke bombs back at them. Right? We've seen those videos where they throw it and then somebody grabs it, throws it back at them. We have not seen them respond to that. So this looks to me, and this is an opinion show, so I'll say this looks to me like a test.
Exactly. Let me read some more comments because they are coming in rapid fire here. Red says, Americans, you're getting a taste of what people endured in Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, etc., etc., etc. 100% correct there, sweetie. James Deutsch says, Israeli training of police, widespread. Yep, we know that is definitely factual. David Gregory says, this is a kind of democracy we will bring to the world. pigs doing us like our military does the rest of the world. 100%. Yep. Who knew? We've been funding the Pentagon and Department of Defense all this time so they could do this shit to us. Kiana Rainey says everything the police do is justified in the eyes of the law and in the government. That's right. I mean, Trump has declared himself to be the law and order president. Ironically, he's running against a law and order Democrat, Joe Biden. So we got two law and order assholes trying to duke it out to figure out who's going to be the toughest on crime. But I want us to move along because there was a sustained protest effort, not only nationally, but locally in the hometown of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, the streets are not letting this go, and rightfully we should not. The three officers who allegedly shot and killed Breonna that night many weeks ago now still remain free. One of them has been fired. The other two have been reassigned, and still no charges have been brought. But don't think that the people in Louisville, Kentucky, gonna let it go. No, they are not. They went to the district attorney's house, set up shop at his house for the protest. Let's take a look at how that action went down.
Trespassing isn't the only charge. LMPD says that due to the protesters' refusal to leave the property and their attempts to influence the decision of the Attorney General by their actions, they were all charged with intimidating a participant in a legal process.
Your new neighbor has the power to arrest and charge cops that murdered Breonna Taylor.
Graymore Devondale off Hare Lane was introduced to their new neighbor by protesters right outside their homes.
We are here to hold Daniel Cameron accountable and make sure that he does his job because he is not doing his job.
Standing their ground while sitting on the ground at Attorney General Daniel Cameron's East Louisville home with their arms linked, as LMPD made a perimeter around their group chanting.
They definitely did their job. We had no idea he lived here until now.
Neighbors like Adam and Zoe Blake watched LMPD slowly but surely arrest each one of them. The crowd of protesters only got smaller by the minute.
They've rolled out with maybe a dozen vans full of protesters they've arrested.
Others like Lee Merritt were among the legal observers who traveled into Louisville for this moment.
To ensure that neither protesters or law enforcement are violating the law or violating anyone's rights. And to observe, record, report when incidences take place.
More than 100 people marched from Ballard High School down Hare Lane. They peacefully stayed in one lane, not bothering cars in the other direction, ending in Cameron's front yard, only for 87 of them to leave with their wrists tied.
Everyone that was arrested and put in that van had their head held high.
And they kept chanting, even as they were being arrested. They were having their hands put behind their backs and zip ties, and they still kept their heads held high, and people who were standing outside the police tape were chanting with them.
It's something some of these neighbors say was inspiring.
And I hope that this has changed some people's hearts. It definitely has been very eye-opening to see it firsthand.
After more than 3 hours, the protest was over, with Cameron's front yard seemingly untouched. These protesters say this won't be the last time this community will see them.
So we want you all to know that you may see us often in your neighborhood.
And their energy is still very much alive tonight. Those legal representatives, along with protesters, have been at Metro Corrections just behind me here near 6th and Jefferson, waiting for those 87 people who were arrested to come out. There is no word on when they will be released or where they will go next, but we can tell you the crowd at Jefferson Square Park has only continued to grow. We'll give you the latest tonight on if anything happens here downtown.
That video courtesy of WHAS News 11 in Louisville. Gang, almost 90 people showed up at the district attorney's house and set up shop in his front yard. I love it. And what I love even more is that they didn't even tear up his yard. They didn't even tear his yard up. They left his yard looking pretty nice. But there was a story, a profile written recently in the Louisville Courier-Journal about this district attorney. This guy's name is Daniel Cameron. He's only 34 years old. He is the Commonwealth of Kentucky's first ever Black district attorney, ever. And he is also the first Republican to hold the office in more than 70 years. So this guy is a Black Republican, first Black attorney general in the history of Kentucky's history. But what's interesting about him that I did not know is that he was endorsed by Donald Trump. What? And also he is a protege of Senator Mitch McConnell. So he is off to, he's got terrible mentorship, apparently. And we can tell some of this by his decision so far not to charge the 3 officers involved in the murder of Breonna Taylor. Now, what happened was that where the murder occurred was inside of Jefferson County, and the Commonwealth attorney for Jefferson County, his name was Tom Wine, recused himself from the case. So therefore, it fell into the office of the Attorney General. And so far, it's been more than 4 months since Breonna was murdered. There have been no charges filed, and this Attorney General has made no indication as to when he will file charges or even whether he will file charges. And panel, I know that we are a collection of people here who understand that not all skin folk are your kinfolk, but yeah. Damn, dog. Bruh, you got to charge at least one of these cops. Khalilah, I want to start with you here because perhaps it was just my ignorance to be surprised that this black man had been endorsed by Donald Trump. And it's like, oh, well, now that kind of makes sense as to why he has not charged these 3 white cops in the murder of Breonna.
I was aware that he was endorsed by the man that lives at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue the evening he won, because there were a number of Black elected officials who won that evening. And so he stood out as the one Republican who was able to win his office. Let me tell you about Homeboy. Beyond the fact that Homeboy is not going to arrest Breonna Taylor's killings, Homeboy said, you can write, all the celebrities can write as many letters as they want, but I'm not subscribing to or being bullied by any of your celebrity. Homeboy has asked a judge to reverse the governor's orders of protection for COVID-19 and to eliminate rules that put certain places on lockdown, despite the state's viral incidents growing. So this Bama is not only Team Trump, this Bama is at the forefront. He might have been roommates with Stephen Miller in college. I don't know.
Oh,
but
no.
he does not seem, we've moved beyond kinfolk versus skinfolk with him. He is one of those people who I'm sure sees himself as a rising star, as a 34-year-old, because, he's a unicorn, a Black man who doesn't love himself and is going to ride for the Republican Party. Unfortunately, he's putting people's lives at stake. The number of people that he arrested that he did not allow bond for is unconscionable, and it goes beyond the realm of fair punishment. You can't tell me that somebody who's on reality TV is going to abscond and we won't be able to find them. So the idea that some folk are being charged with a felony of intimidation of someone, a party to litigation, that doesn't go for the government. So that's about civilians. So, if you're going to be a bad mamma jamma, you better step up and put on your big boy drawers and not try to use the law to settle your beefs. And we have a constitutional right to protest. If you didn't know, check the tea that was poured into Boston Harbor. We have a right to protest. And even now today, the fact that people are required to get permits to protest goes in the face of the purpose of a protest to begin with. But I digress. I understand people want to be orderly. But whether it's Breonna Taylor's killers or the person causing over 100 plus, is it 100 plus? What's our death rate here? Is it 300 something thousand or 100 something thousand? Whatever it is.
In terms of for COVID, 137,000?
One too many.
137,000. Yes.
One too many. And the person who is the law enforcement officer in chief was responsible for making sure that one didn't explode to 137. So one way or another, Black lives are not being valued because we are disproportionately, along with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, are disproportionately being impacted by COVID. So I don't think he has any value on our lives. And the fact that you are going to sue the governor to make the governor stop requiring people to take safety precautions so the whole state doesn't have a health outbreak is a little loopy. If you ask me, you got better things to do with your time as the Attorney General.
You know, Tunde, it was made so apparently clear from the night that Breonna was initially murdered that the criminal justice system was not planning to do right by her at all. In this case, when it came to arresting and holding her boyfriend, even charging him for attempted murder on a police when he was well within his legal rights to defend his home, using his Second Amendment rights. Obviously, prosecutors saw the light there in that instance and eventually did drop charges against him. But then we saw the police report that came from Louisville police, which didn't even acknowledge that Breonna had been injured, let alone killed. We saw the runaround that the cops gave her mom the night that she was killed, didn't want to tell her that her daughter had been killed, was trying to plant all sorts of, seeds of misdirection, asking, did they have enemies? Was people mad at them? No, y'all, they knew exactly who killed Breonna that night. And they were trying to send her mother on this wild goose chase. But at the same time,
they still have not produced the search warrant. They still have not produced a search warrant.
And another Black man was killed in the protest, protesting Breonna's murder. This gentleman, we did report about it here on Stir Crazy. I can't recall his name, and my apologies for that. But he was the owner of a barbecue place in the West End, and the National Guardsmen ended up shooting and killing him. No charges have been filed there either. So Tunde, this brother, I don't know what to call this man. This person, is going to allow Breonna's death to possibly get swept under the rug, covered up in real time while we all watched it happen.
Yeah. We do this interesting thing, right? Like we look at each other as, we're all brothers and sisters, and we all try to kind of have everybody under that same umbrella. But I mean, the dark truth is that, whoever you are, whatever you are, who butters your biscuits at the end of the day, right? So if you've cut your teeth on on getting praise from people like Mitch McConnell and even now obviously Trump, you're not going to do anything, because exactly, and it's really interesting, right? Because in this I believe the same article that we're talking about, that kind of goes into Daniel Cameron's background. It has some sort of I think a quote from him or some sort of statement from him that says he basically wants to depoliticize the office of the Attorney General, right? Which is laughable to say the very least. That if you're playing for Team McConnell and Team Trump, it's going to be nothing but politicized. You're
politicized. You're politicized all day.
Yeah, exactly. And knowingly, this just goes to this whole sort of this sort of obviousness is basically just telling us don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe your lying ears. You don't hear that, you don't see that, you don't see exactly what's going on right in front of you. So and what's further, a little bit more to that is that Trump was essentially praising him as, the law and order. He's tough on crime. And it's very curious, right, that when the crime is maybe being committed by a civilian, then, we're tough on crime. But when it's being committed by somebody who has a badge or somebody who is sent to carry out this, a so-called search warrant or arrest warrant, whatever they were doing, that nothing happens in that case. And so it's so funny. And in this case, it's, it might not be as funny that, this law and order sort of mantra is paired, Trump repeats it on every day, all day. But he, just like, the rest of his sort of ilk knows, is that when it's somebody that they care about that's being held accountable and being brought to justice, no law and order to speak of. And so, I think for one, I'm kind of just, I'm tired of playing this sort of game. And so, whether Daniel Cameron, whether he's black, white, whatever the case is, I think he represents somebody who is trying to be very opportunistic, right? Somebody who's not just trying to serve because it's their duty, but he's got an end game and goal. I guarantee you, he has ambitions far beyond Attorney General. So he knows the fastest way to there isn't by doing right by people, doing right by the scenario, but by playing politics. And that's exactly what this is. It's him playing politics.
Eze Jackson, let's do a quick compare and contrast if we could, because I know you had a bird's eye view to all the events that happened in Baltimore during and after the murder of Freddie Gray by Baltimore police, and how the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, was initially very much lauded in a heroic sense, that she even brought charges against the police. And we all saw the cases just fall apart right before our eyes, which was so disappointing and sadly predictable at the same time. But Marilyn Mosby brought charges, right? She did attempt to hold these police accountable, whereas this Attorney General from Kentucky, Attorney General Cameron, I mean, it's yet to be seen whether or not he's going to bring charges, but already it's been over 4 months and none have been brought so far. How would you compare these two prosecutors and how they have handled these cases, in your opinion?
Well, I would say that both of these prosecutors are playing the political game. And I'm so glad that Tunde brought up that point about him not wanting to be politicized, right? Because if you look at Marilyn Mosby, she played the political game for the Democrats, for the left, right? It's she jumped out there early, prosecute these people. I don't know whether or not she knew or not that she was going to fail at actually charging these officers with Freddie Gray's murder, but I do know that she played the game. And so if you look at this guy, Cameron, he's also playing the game, because none of these protesters' charges have been dropped. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the most recent news that I saw, that the protesters that showed up in Kentucky, the charges have been dropped. Shout out to Trader Truth and a few other rappers that were a part of that. But those charges have been dropped. So it's very easy for you to drop the charges against these protesters because what they're doing is calling for you to bring charges against the officers. So he's playing the political game. They're gonna let the charges drop and try to see if it can fizzle out and go away. Because if they were to keep the charge, and this shout out to the protesters once again, because if he were to maintain the charges, it would cause even more of an uproar. I mean, right now, the whole country and a lot of the world are calling for Breonna Taylor's murderers to be arrested. So if you were to charge these protesters with a crime, this will blow it up even more. Oh, you're going to charge them, but you're not going to charge Breonna Taylor's murderers? So he's playing the Republican political game. Marilyn Mosby played the Democratic liberal game over here in Baltimore. None of these groups have been serving Black America like they should be, or like they promised to be when they run for office. Hello, you want this politicized, but in order for you to even have had that seat, you had to run for office. So you had to travel around and say rhetoric and raise money and have campaign material sent to people's houses. So, yeah, you're right. If his ambitions are higher than where he's at now, which they probably are, he's playing the political game. And I think that's the part that people need to pay attention to, not the Republican or the Democrat side or the left or the liberal side, but that political game. Like, what does it mean? It means something different over there than it meant here in Baltimore. And that's what we're seeing play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to do my Googles and look back at when he was running for this office, because Lord, I can only imagine all kinds of shoe shining, tap dancing. I mean, bro, if you getting endorsed by Trump and Mitch McConnell, what kind of song of the South? Songs are you singing?
Are you kidding me? And don't let this man have been a member of a Black church.
Oh Lord, no.
Oh man, no they threw all the mothers. They pray for this. They threw all that money at him.
Yeah.
So he's not there. He's not there on Trump's money alone.
That's true.
He's the first Black person holding the seat. There are black people who have put money behind him. Let's remember Candace Owens. This guy probably never had a chance of ever having a date with her because she don't like her own people. But at the same time, they're doing the same work and getting support from those people with, who are not our kinfolk.
But look, that's why we as people, we have to scrutinize everybody. Like nobody gets a pass, man. Like it's whatever. It's about what you're saying. It's not about, okay, like, if you're black, okay, maybe that can come with a little bit of assumption. Like, hey, all right, maybe what the struggle is. But the truth is like, no, because we see from this, Daniel Cameron, as well as, you just mentioned Candace Owens, people are opportunistic. They see wherever that lane is, that they can get in. Where's the easiest path to get to where I'm trying to go? And they know that there's, clearly the Republican Party are looking for some spokespeople, right? They're looking for some people to be like, hey, all right, we need some colors around here, to get rid of all those rumors. So they're looking for people to be spokespeople for them, not even to speaking to, if you actually have those, conservative beliefs or whatever the case is, forget that, they're just looking for people, period, to be on the front lines and say, okay, you can't attack this person because they're black. What are you going to do? And they're saying all the same stuff we say. So, they must be right. So yeah, we've got to scrutinize everybody. No more of this. Oh yeah. Somebody gets a pass because, they share our, your skin color. Forget that.
You got to remember the tactics. You got to remember the tactics, right? Like if you couldn't catch a slave, you get a nigga to go catch him. You pay a nigga to go catch him. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't forget the tactics. You know what I'm saying? I think when I was having a conversation with one of my producers from our label yesterday, and he's Jewish. We were having this conversation about race and all of this stuff, and we have to remember right now that you have people from both sides, as far as race is concerned, fighting for the other. You know what I mean? So just like we have the Candace Owens and the Camerons of the world, we also have these white kids out there risking their lives and jumping out there and getting arrested and being willing to be arrested for the right. I even love the interview of the young lady who lives in his neighborhood, who was like, wow. She felt educated by what was happening. And I wouldn't be surprised if I see her at a protest on the front line. So even though I think the root in a lot of this stuff involves skin color, but the actors, the people playing, like sometimes the skin color doesn't matter. It's the agenda and the purpose and what's happening, and that's what we're seeing play out.
Guys, so the police in the wake of the murders of George Floyd, and we saw the number of uprisings in cities across this country, really across the world, and we saw the police really respond in very brutal and violent ways, attacking protesters, beating them unprovoked. In Chicago, Dwayne, I want to pop up that tweet real quick. In the 4 weeks since the George Floyd protests began, there was nearly 1,000 complaints of brutality filed against Chicago police officers in a 4-week period. And that was only, it's from up until June 29th, starting from May 26th. That was the last day for which records were available. That's according to the Chicago Sun-Times. And according to the New York Times, NYPD has said that during the protests there in New York City, where we showed many videos here on this program of NYPD just acting like what do they call them? Jackboot thugs. And according to the police commissioner there, Dermot F. Shea, he maintains that misconduct during the protests was confined to, quote, isolated cases, and that officers were confronted by violence with protesters. And I want to pop up this video that was taken this week. I want to say it was either taken late this past weekend or in the early days this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. It was retweeted by Rex Chapman, of all people, the former ball player. He's been putting a lot of interesting videos on his timeline. You could always go to his account to find some interesting vids. But he posted this one that had went viral of a protester appeared to be barking at the cop, right? I mean, I think you're allowed to yell at police. I don't think that's against the law. And just see how the police responded with violence. Let's take a look at that video.
Get off there! Get off there! No, we got that back! Who the fuck is you yelling at? Who the fuck? Y'all see this? Look, y'all see this? Do y'all see? Oh, he's gonna lose his job. He's gonna lose his job. Get over me! Get over me! Get over me! Get over me! Let me go! Don't let him go! Let me go! What are you gonna take me for? No! You chased me! No! I didn't do nothing! I didn't do nothing! I didn't do nothing!
Calm down, dude. Calm down.
He's breaking my arm! He's breaking my arm!
He's not resisting. He's not resisting. He's not resisting. He's not resisting. He's not resisting.
Just back up from the car.
I want your badge number. I want that one right there. I want his badge number. I want his badge number. I want his badge number. All right, I want it. Stop bending his arm. Stop bending his arm. He's not resisting. He's not getting my shoulder.
Yo, what's your name, bro?
Robert Bolden. What's your name?
Robert Bolden. B-O-L-D-E-N. All right. Yo, we're gonna tell the lawyer. You're not going to my shoulder real quick right here? Y'all just okay my shoulder. Your kid takes you. Your kid takes you. You're fucking nuts, man. Your whole entire floor.
What's up, guys? Before you leave, I need your badge number. I need your badge. Back up.
So the original poster of that video was at Scooter Caster, and that video was reported to have been shot in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And Khalilah, in this Times piece, the police commissioner, Commissioner Shea, is quoted as saying, quote, "I think officers used an incredible amount of restraint in terms of allowing people to vent. I am proud of their performance in policing these protests, ending the riots, and upholding the rule of law." And, you know, in spite the fact that the protests are not, quote unquote, violent as they were in the opening days of these uprisings, we don't see things being smashed and we don't see property burning anymore. But it does seem as though the police are just looking for an opportunity to crack some skulls. This happened in your hometown. What are your thoughts about what you just witnessed and what the NYPD police commissioner said about his officers and how he believes that they have used quite a bit of restraint during these protests?
First of all, juxtapose this video with the young man being tased and brought in from the first thing that we watched with the young woman with no objection and seeming like she was ready to go with law enforcement. That's number one. Just want to bring that full circle. But secondarily, listen, Brooklyn, stand up. People are being more savvy. They know exactly how far to go with the police. They have gotten under control people who want to monopolize and take advantage of this situation to do any looting, who have nothing to do with protests. So the police are really being backed into a corner to actually enforce the law or leave people alone. The commissioner is out of his mind if he thinks that that interaction was appropriate for his police officers to engage with community. And the idea that if you get out of line, is very slave master-like. It is, don't look at me the wrong way, boy. Don't move the wrong way, boy. How dare you step towards me, boy? He had every right to bark, to express frustration, any of those things under our Constitution. However, these police officers seem to feel like it's within their right to put people in their place, and that is not their job. So when people are objecting to the concept of defund the police and really misconstruing it, when people are saying abolish the police, others are really misconstruing it. What they're saying is what we have right now are not people abiding by the law. They are using their own version of the law, and then they protect one another when they are caught using their own version of the law. And these people are not only fed up, we're all fed up. And if folk think that these protests are going to stop anytime soon, they are mistaken. Like, Eze said, you have young people across racial lines, across nationalities saying, I'm going to put myself on the line because this is not allowed to go forward. And it was ridiculous what that officer did, those officers did. Furthermore, across the city in New York and in other places, not only around the country, but around the globe, shout out to the sister who has her statue put up in Bristol in place of the colonizer who was raping and pillaging on the continent. But, the fact of the matter is these protests are not going away. And the idea that the police are on one hand saying, see, you need the police. Look at all the recent shootings, but not saying we stop policing. And that's why you see so many shootings. So why would you defund the police? It's all a circular set of commentary that has no bearing upon how people actually live and the justice that they're seeking. So the commissioner was completely out of line. And if the idea that the commissioner didn't see anything wrong with it tells you how the police are being trained and why they should all go.
Eze Jackson, when I hear the NYPD commissioner saying that, he's proud of the restraint that his officers use, what I hear is that y'all lucky that we ain't shoot and kill a whole lot of motherfuckers out there in the street, to use my language. I usually don't say MF. I usually don't drop MF, but it's Friday. My bad. Y'all be okay. But that's what I heard. Like, you're lucky that our cops wasn't out there shooting and killing people, but we use restraint. So we just beat the hell out of them instead.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, fact right there, first and foremost. Secondly, I once again feel bad for these officers who seriously think that they're doing the right thing, who have been inducted, trained, and brainwashed into a system where they think that this is how they have to react. And it's especially heartbreaking when you look at the NYPD, because when you go back and look at a lot of these videos, a lot of these officers are Black and brown. When you look at the Baltimore Police Department, when you look at these incidents and these videos, a lot of these officers are Black and brown. The GTTF, Gun Trace Task Force, that went down here in Baltimore City with their police department, the leader, Wayne Jenkins, was white, but all these other guys, Rayam, Gondo, these were Black guys, and it's unfortunate that the system has been so strategic and so powerful that they've been able to convince these people to turn on their own people. It's heartbreaking to watch.
Listen,
it's really heartbreaking to watch, because I don't, if I'm one of their cousins, look, I have cousins who are correctional officers. They hate when we get together and I crack my jokes about their job. I can't imagine who their me is in their family. You know what I mean? Who their cousin is. That's like, bruh, I saw your punk ass on that video. You know what I mean? It's like, when are the officers going to start being embarrassed? That I think that's when you can take the bottom out, when you can snatch their basement from under the building, and you can blow it up from the bottom. When these officers can actually look at themselves on tape, look at themselves and be honest and say, yo, on a human level, the shit is fucked up. And we're responding totally wrong. But they're put in these situations where they're made to be scared, they're made to be fearful, and they're trained to respond in a certain way and told that when you respond in this way, we will protect you. Don't even worry about nothing. You good. And that's what's happening right there in that video.
Yeah, I was going to say that I recently rewatched Watchmen, and I would encourage everybody to do that. If you thought it was bananas and on point before, watch it right now. And you will see all of the things put in place, from law enforcement being tightly knitly woven in with the Klan and with white extremists, to how television has been put in place to convince us, and movies and media have been put in place to convince us to be our own worst enemies. But that in the end, we are our own liberators. We are our own God. So, watch that again, because I think we do have an awakening happening that is going to be told 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. I think 2020 is wild because it's healing the planet. There are lots of things that are happening this year that we need for the future, and a lot of things that are being wiped out that we didn't take care of on our own before.
Tunde, hop in there, babe.
Yeah, so I got a super quick story, and this might be a roundabout way to talk about what we're talking about here, but I had a friend, really close friend. I considered him a brother. He still is, to this day. But a long time ago, about well over almost a decade ago, he went away to California, and so this person who I considered a brother, a lot of things happened after he left that you figure, hey, maybe you might try to check in, you might try to figure out, hey, how can I still be involved even though I'm on the other side of the of America. And to my surprise, he didn't, and so what that forced me to realize is that you don't know your relationships until they're tested, right? And so the reason why I'm even bringing that up right now is because a lot of America's relationship with law enforcement hasn't been tested, right? A lot of people are waking up. You're saying that there have been, so many complaints that have been launched against police officers. A lot of America didn't know that this was a thing, right? And so for people for us to be able to move past this moment, not just kind of wallow in it, but to move past it, those people who are just waking up to the fact that, police brutality, it knows no bounds. There is no bottom to that well. It's continuous, always perpetual. There has to be action, and it has to be large sweeping action. It can't just be, we're just gonna, we need to retrain them, or this just has to be, this is a disciplinary thing. No, this is a mentality. This is a mindset that's exercised at will. And for the people who are just waking up, this is kind of like my call out to you all is that it's reform isn't going to happen on its own. We have to do it on a united front. Otherwise, it's just simply not going to happen. We're going to get past this moment, and things are going to go back to like they've always been. There aren't going to be that many news stories about it. People aren't going to be sharing it as much. So we have to utilize this moment. In a very large and organized way. So yeah.
Gang, it is about that time. It's a few minutes past 6. I wanted us to close the show on a bit of an up note. This is, we don't do fun videos like we used to, but I saw this one circulating and it made me laugh. I think you guys will get a kick out of it too. Let's take a peek at the hottest video to hit the net this summer.
Warning, this video contains adult material not suitable for children. Tired of the same old politicians, experts, and doctors telling you to wear a mask? Of course you are. Introducing Karen's Gone Wild, COVID-19 edition. The action never ends when real Karens are asked to wear masks in public or be refused service by private businesses. The surprises don't stop when these lawyer Karens inform you of their rights.
You're breaking the law.
Don't love social distancing? Get up close and personal with these coffin Karens. And it's yours on DVD for only $9.99. Use your credit card and you'll get the all-new Racist Karen's Gone Wild All Lives Matter edition for free. Watch as Karens all across America patrol the streets of their suburbs, demanding anyone who isn't white answer a few questions.
I'm asking you if this is your property.
You've never seen Karens like these. They know everyone who lives on this street except you.
You live here? Yes, bitch!
Order in the next 60 minutes and receive Kevin's Gone Wild. Be the first to get your hands on the hottest collection of agitated patriots ready to tell you exactly what they think. Just make sure to keep the cameras running. They love it.
That video told me all day long.
Call 1-800-55-KAREN. Place your order right now and get all 3 DVDs and a special bonus. Karen's Gone Wild White House Edition.
CNN, fake news.
Now, listen, you got to be old enough to remember when the Girls Gone Wild videos was an infomercial that would play at random hours of the day.
It would play when television went off. That's how old I am.
Oh my God.
Karen's Gone Wild, $9.99.
That's so good. Can you please send that to me?
Yes.
That's so good.
I will send that to you. Hey, panel. I appreciate y'all coming on here and blacking it up with me on a Friday. Eze Jackson, Dr. Khalilah Harris, Tunde Ogunfolaju. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with your homie on Stir Crazy on a Friday. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Kim.
No doubt. Appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely.
Plug the show real quick. Why you should give a fuck?
Plug it.
7 p.m. every week. Check us out.
Wednesdays.
Did I not say what did I say?
I don't know what you said. Wednesdays at 7. That's right. Why you should give her. Real quick, I want to say thank you to everybody that works on this show. Thank you so much to Taylor Hebden, Kelly McAdams, Adam Coley, James Daly, and of course, Dwayne Gladden, our technical director and producer. All the people that put in good work here on Stir Crazy. I'd like to thank y'all very much. What, Dwayne? What? Oh, Dwayne said...
Oh, wow.
Dwayne said y'all was getting it all the way live today and in the chat. We haven't had this many viewers on a show. So thank y'all to the fans, to the customers. We appreciate y'all listening, watching, talking, chatting, observing, commenting, all that. We will see you again on Tuesday for Stir Crazy. I'm your host, Kim Brown. Y'all have a good weekend. Don't forget, Rona is still out here jumping on people. Wash your hands, wear your face mask, and stay out of big crowds. Be safe. Have a great weekend, y'all. Thanks again.
Hey.